Hey guys, it's Brandon Miniman from Pocketnow.com, and this is our full review of the iPhone 5. Let's get to it. Now in its 6th iteration, not 5th like the name would lead you to believe, the iPhone 5 is the biggest change in form factor yet. For the first time, Apple has gone with a 16:9 aspect ratio display, a real relief for those that hate the black bars that show up when you're watching HD content on the iPhone 4S and below. But then the iPhone 5 cannot display true HD content because its screen resolution is a non-standard 1136 by 640 instead of the 1280 by 720 resolution we find on many of the latest Android phones. But this doesn't impact the user much, as movies and TV shows played back in HD is effortlessly downsampled to accommodate the strange resolution on the iPhone 5. HD content looks fantastic on the iPhone 5's display, though we'd prefer watching a high-def movie on the Galaxy S3 or One X any day because there's nothing like a spacious display for looking at videos. Then there's the matter of screen size. Consumers obviously want larger screens. A large screen once met a thick form factor, but as HTC has shown with the One X and as Samsung has shown with the Galaxy S3, you can have a big screen and still have a thin profile. To keep with the times, Apple increased the display by a mere ½ inch to 4 inches as to not impact the already great one-handed usability of the device. The larger screen is an improvement, especially when looking at email lists, browsing the web, or looking at your Facebook timeline, because you can see more without having to scroll. But the frustrating placement of the back button in iOS in the upper left corner is made worse by the taller screen. If you have small hands, hopefully your thumb has a lot of flexibility. In Android, the back button is always on the bottom of the phone, so you're never having to stretch unless you're opening the notification shade. The screen quality on the iPhone 5 is improved versus the 4S. Color saturation is improved and so is contrast. Overall, we were hugely impressed with the quality of the 5's display, as it was extremely well balanced and super sharp and clear thanks to the 326 ppi. In terms of touch sensitivity, the iPhone 5 now integrates this touch sensor into the display, allowing it to be thinner. Has this improved the touch sensitivity of the display? Actually, no. In fact, we found touch sensitivity to feel a little bit more numb on the iPhone 5 compared to the 4S. It's not a big problem, but you should keep your expectations in check. Let's talk about the design of the iPhone 5, which comes in black or white. Your choice of color determines several things about the phone, including the front plate, the tint of the metal on the back and on the sides, and the color of the 4 antenna dividers. Whether you go with black or white, the iPhone 5's back panel is now aluminum. It's a smooth, untextured surface that does a good job hiding fingerprints and deterring scratches. What doesn't deter scratches is the polished Apple logo on the back, which scratched after just 2 days of careful testing on our unit. Where the sides meet the back, you get a brilliant tapered metal edge that looks and feels extremely precise. Unfortunately, this edge is prone to chipping and prone to picking up fingerprints. Our unit came from the factory with a nick in this edge, and we're hearing similar reports from a large fraction of new iPhone 5 owners. At the end of the day, you're going to want to put a case on the iPhone 5, and with Apple not to make a bumper this time, you have to look to a third party. Also on the back is the same 8-megapixel camera that was found on the iPhone 4S, except this time there's a scratch-resistant lens and what appears to be a bigger flash. More on the camera later. Apple didn't do away with the glass on the rear of the phone entirely. There are glass accents that flank the aluminum backing, giving the phone a beautiful elegance and providing the user with a second type of texture. While beautiful, we worry about how easily it is to crack these small pieces of glass, as they look difficult to replace, unlike the back glass panel of the 4 and 4S, which could be swapped easily. On the bottom of the phone are a bunch of drilled holes for the speaker, which we found to be louder than on the iPhone 4S, and one of 3 microphones. There's also the new Lightning charging and syncing port, which we like more than the bulky and non-reversible 30-pin connector. While we understand the reasons for going to a smaller connector, we wish Apple would have included a free converter with all new iPhones. Instead, they're charging a ridiculous $29. And finally, on the right side, we see the new Nano SIM tray. If you have a micro SIM that you want to use, it's easy to trim down the size to fit the Nano SIM tray. Check out our video tutorial on how to do so. In hand, the iPhone 5 feels remarkable. At 7.6 millimeters in depth, the thinness of the phone is absolutely striking. Apple has done a good job at making the iPhone feel like a sophisticated and meticulously crafted device in your hand. And not only is it thin, but it's insanely lightweight at 112 grams, which is lighter than the lightest phone we can think of, the Galaxy S2. It's so light that some are saying that it feels cheap, but we didn't think that. Let's talk about specs. The iPhone 5 is running with Apple's A6 dual-core CPU that runs around 1 GHz in each core. It has double the RAM of its predecessor with 1 GB. Apple claims that the iPhone 5 is twice as fast as the 4S. Is this true? To see for yourself, we recommend that you check out our iPhone 5 versus 4S comparison, but in brief, we can tell you that yes, there's definitely a significant bump in speed when opening apps, loading a web page, or just when flipping through settings. Whether it's a full 2x increase, we can't be sure, but make no mistake about it, the iPhone 5 is fast. You act, it responds without lag or hesitation. It confidently can handle whatever you throw at it. With that said, iOS is still heavy with screen animations, which at times can make the experience feel a little bit slower. Running Jelly Bean on one of the latest Android phones just feels more snappy, even if the hardware is less capable than what is inside the iPhone 5. But the iPhone 5 is a gaming monster. For example, playing Asphalt 7 with the A6 CPU and the higher resolution display was a highly immersive and fast-paced experience if you can stand the tremendous strain on battery. Most games like Shadowgun haven't been updated for the higher resolution screen. Nevertheless, playing it with black bars on the side was an equally smooth experience. And the iPhone 5 is LTE, whether on AT&T, Verizon, or Sprint. We tested the iPhone 5 on AT&T's LTE network in Philadelphia and were able to clock some extremely impressive LTE speeds of 25 to 50 megabits per second down and about 10 to 20 megabits per second up. In terms of Wi-Fi performance, the iPhone 5 is slightly better than the 4S in terms of speed and signal strength. Having LTE on the iPhone dramatically improves the experience, especially if you have coverage in your area. Everything is just fast. Let's talk about the software. So are there any features of iOS 6 that are better or different on the iPhone 5 compared to other iOS products? Not exactly, although some features just work better on the iPhone 5 thanks to the better processor. For example, flyover in Maps is much smoother on the iPhone 5 if you like that feature. Also, FaceTime over LTE is much better than FaceTime over 3G. Beyond that, the iPhone 5 benefits from the many rather small incremental updates to Apple's mobile operating system, such as Passbook, shared photo stream, Siri functions, full screen landscape web browsing, and so forth. And if we sound unexcited about iOS 6, it's because we pretty much are. The iPhone 5 is a taller screen, and Apple is encouraging developers to do more with their apps than just stretch them so that they work on the iPhone 5. So far, it looks like developers are just stretching their apps, which is fine by us. If you run into an app that isn't updated for the iPhone 5, you will get black bars on the top and the bottom, which isn't much of a problem, and we anticipate by the end of October, most major apps will have been updated for the higher res display. Now let's talk about some test notes. First, battery life. Apple claims that the iPhone 5 gets better battery life than on the 4S, and they're right, but only by a small margin. Whereas the iPhone 4S could go an entire day and no more with heavy use, the iPhone 5 will last a few hours more under the same conditions. More specifically, with heavy web browsing over LTE and Wi-Fi, several calls, a few gaming sessions, and some iMessaging, our iPhone 5 taken off the charger at 8 a.m. was at about 20% battery by 11 p.m. Not too bad. And on to the camera. Until the Galaxy S3 came out, the iPhone 4S was the unrivaled champion in photo and video quality on a smartphone. The iPhone 5 is marginally better, but indeed better, than the 4S in photo and video quality. Low-light pictures come out better, color saturation is improved, and even audio seems crisper on video. Speaking of the camera, the front-facing camera is now higher resolution and can take videos in 720p. This also means that FaceTime calls are clearer visually. In our testing, FaceTime calls were indeed higher resolution, but only when network conditions were perfect. How about FaceTime over cellular if your network allows it? Well, it works with a disastrous effect on battery life, we should say, and the phone heats up a lot when you do it. Also, there might be a bug with FaceTime even over Wi-Fi. During several test calls, we got this poor connection message. Apple is trying to reinvent the earphones with the new EarPods, bundled free with all iPhone 5s. They are indeed a huge leap better than your typical earbud. They have more bass and improved mid-range. They just feel a little strange in the ear, or maybe they just feel different and it's something to get used to. Finally, we can report that call quality and in-call volume was fantastic. Apple claims there is a new type of noise cancellation, and in noisy environments, we had an easy time hearing the caller on the other end, and they also reported a clear audio connection. Also, the iPhone 5 supports wideband audio, which is kind of like HD voice, but most carriers, including AT&T, doesn't support that just yet, so we weren't able to report on how that works. In conclusion, the iPhone 5 is an incredible phone. Everything that it does well. It has a great camera, it's got great battery life, it has an amazing in-hand high-quality feel, it has LTE networking, and it has great software at the end of the day that is very reliable and that just works. That said, if you want a phone that you can customize more, a phone that has a bigger screen and still has high-quality hardware, we recommend the Galaxy S3. Overall, we give the iPhone a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching.